So we're going to give them a minute or so just to continue to join here. But super excited for today's conversation. This is our first dedicated pre-sales webinar that we've done through Women in Sales, and we got a lot of positive reception. So I don't think it's going to be our last one. But if you're joining us in the audience, let us know where you're joining from and let us know what role you're in today so that it'll help us guide how the conversation is set up and how we answer some of these questions. So drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from all of you. And to kick off, as we're getting people joining here, if you're not familiar with Women in Sales, we are the largest global community for women in the field of sales. We provide educational resources, events, in-person activations, anything that you can think of basically that's going to better serve women in their sales career. And we also center women in all of those content pieces in conversations and events. So really proud of the work that we're doing. We provide our community completely free of charge to thousands of women across the globe so that there are no financial barriers. So I'm excited for today. This event is especially special because we have 3 of our Women in Sales community members here. So this is truly a Women in Sales hosted only event. We don't have a partner. We don't have a co-sponsor. We just have our community members here who are awesome and engaged, and we're excited to introduce them. So I think to start us off here, let's have each of you introduce yourselves and talk about how you first got your start in pre-sales, because as we know, sometimes the road is not as straightforward as we think. So Chanel, can you kick us off and then we'll just popcorn around to everyone?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So my name is Chanel Keller. I am a senior solutions engineer at Qualia. My role as a senior solutions engineer really was a sort of natural progression, originally starting as an IC, gathering a ton of product knowledge. So I've been with my organization for a little over 6 years, and I've really been able to wear multiple hats. Initially, we were very small but mighty team. And so you were doing a lot of sales and implementation. And so that just really sort of geared me up as the organization matured. We actually created a team of solutions engineers a little over 2.5 years ago to really help with our enterprise sales segment. We really saw that those were the folks that really wanted the software, but had the hardest time seeing what it would look like to transform their business, where this pre-sales motion was so integral to getting and landing some of those first initial deals. So combined a lot of the things that I love to do, which was the technical aptitude of how did the technology actually work, but also the desire to really help these businesses solve some real world challenges. And I think, again, coupled with sort of the patience and maturing of the organization for this role to open up for me to be in today. So yeah, excited to be here and to talk to you, everybody, about pre-sales.
Amazing. Okay, Janelle, how about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Janelle James, based in Chicago. I work for a company called TraceLink. So I have a little bit of a non-traditional path on how I got into solution consulting. I worked in supply chain for 10 plus years as a logistics planner, logistics coordinator. And I decided to get my MBA because I wanted to kind of expand my business knowledge. So I actually got into solution consulting with companies that sell supply chain software because I already had a background in supply chain and logistics of over 10 years.
Love it. Love it. Non-traditional background. We like to hear about it. We're going to dig into that more. Mary Ellen, what about you?
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Knopf, and I'm a senior SE at CSG, located in Chicago, and I'm solutioning revenue management software. I became familiar with sales engineering, pre-sales as it is now, when I was an engineering student. I did my co-ops at Disney World for one of them in operations, and then one of them at a helicopter assembly plant. And I just kind of knew that being on my feet and working outside all day wasn't exactly for me. And so when I came back to school, I spoke to an advisor and they told me all about sales engineering. And I prepared for that role right out of college by working on the software implementation side for 2 years, getting that technical and executive facing experience. And then later did the SDR role for 2 years to learn the full sales cycle. And I've been working as an SE for the last 7 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you all for being with us. Super excited for you to share your insights and engage with the audience here. Would love to hear where some folks are based and what role you're in today. So keep dropping those in the chat. And I think a really natural place to start would be defining pre-sales, because my goodness, there are a lot of definitions swirling around. There's a lot of terminology. we know our industry, everybody loves their acronyms. So I think there is a lot that we can untangle here. So Janelle, can you start us off defining pre-sales? What roles does it include? What do each of the roles mean? Just help us untangle.
Sure. I'd say some of the typical titles you might see is solution consultant, solution engineer. And I feel like it's kind of based on what side of the country you're on. I've been a solution consultant in title for 4 years, and now I'm starting to see more solution engineers. And I think that means they're trying to get you to be a little bit more technical. So when I think about sort of what that title means to me internally, right, outside of just the name solution consultant, you're kind of like an internal, I like to think at a little bit of an investigator, right? I'm meeting with these business partners along with the AE, trying to understand their corporate journey. So where they're at, where they're trying to grow into, and what are the hiccups along the way that they're currently facing as they're trying to look to grow and excel, specifically in my area of supply chain and logistics, sort of, where you're at, how you're trying to build your customer base, and how you are moving your products from A to B, because essentially we're all a part of the supply chain in some way, shape, or form. If you've ever been to a restaurant and they were out of French fries, that may or may not have been my fault in the past. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about solution consulting.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. And I saw Pam commented in the chat, the great debate over what to call it. And truly, because we have used so much terminology over the years, I think people have honestly gotten really confused about what means what and what translates to what for other companies. So this is going to be a great discussion. Chanel, Mary Ellen, anything that you would add as far as like defining the role, as far as like what is encompassed within the role, if there's anything either of you would like to add?
I think, yeah, depending on the company, could be strictly assigned to only new business, and you're working with AEs on that, or you could be paired up with specific AEs and tied like an account manager and helping them grow those accounts. And especially if you're working at a company that has a lot of products that you're selling, you'd be the expert on multiple products to show and demonstrate and help them solution.
Yeah. The way that we see pre-sales at Qualia is that it's really the way to bridge the gap between product, sales, and CS. So how are we making sure that each of our organizations has all of the information necessary to succeed? Because on our side, a failed onboarding is worse than a no sale. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish early on, is making sure that all of these moving pieces that are going to support, this eventual customer, that we've done our due diligence.
Ooh, well said. Yeah, I'm thinking about that quote now. Yes. And this next question that I have for you all, this comes very much from my 10 plus years as an AE heart. This is something that I wondered all the time, which is, how do you set yourself up? How do you set your day up and still allow time to prep for every single demo, especially if you're scheduled back to back? Can you take us through basically how do you organize your day and how do you sufficiently prep for all of your meetings? So Mary Ellen, let's start with you for this one, and then we'll go around here.
Yeah, I would say I definitely know myself. Know thyself. Follow your own rhythms. I am definitely a deep work, like digging into demo creation in the first part of the day type of person. So as soon as that demo is scheduled, and for me that's usually 1 to 2 weeks in advance, I start prepping for it. Get any emails out to people for product questions, a piece of the demo that might not need to be fixed that we didn't need until today. So I go ahead and get all those early notifications to other people out. And then when I have days with like back-to-back demos, I really try to block out like at least 15 minutes in between them to just wind down from one, write down those notes or type them up, and then go ahead and maybe put on like a playlist to get a little amped up again and start the next one. So it's always about, the preparation ahead of time. Those first demos usually require the most amount of preparation because you just don't know what exactly is going to pique their interest or what exact pain point you're solving for yet. So those first meetings require just the broadest depth of knowledge going into it. And then the second one and third one and et cetera, you can get really specific about the questions that you're answering for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And my guess is that this is where discovery comes in, probably for the AEs, where they need to do some good discovery and be able to convey what they learned in a clear and concise manner so that you can actually use that as you do your research and prep for those demos as well. So a little bit for my AE friends out there. Chanel, what about you? Chanel, which I was like, Chanel and Janelle are starting to sound a lot alike.
Yeah.
Chanel, what would you add, if anything, here as you think about how you set yourself up for success each day?
I think the biggest thing, like to Mary Ellen's point, is like knowing yourself, like how much time are you going to need between certain demos? I have some today that I can do with the back of my hand. I only need a couple of minutes to set it up, but there are others that do require that. So I think it's, being strict with your calendar. As a sort of type A person myself, like I will block off that I'm busy for prep, setting up a demo. And most folks that are going to be requesting time on my calendar are pretty respectful of it because they know that that's what's going to allow me to bring my best self to their eventually requested demo. So yeah, using my calendar to its fullest ability, really making sure that I've got a very clear set of like golden discovery questions. What are the bare minimum that I need to know to be successful if we don't have a lot to go off of just yet? Like Mary Ellen said, maybe this is a first demo that we haven't done a ton of discovery yet. So using the calendar, definitely.
Absolutely. Janelle, bonus question for you is, as we think about like setting up the day, setting up our calendar, are there any, like specifically, I saw some comments in here about like blocking your calendar. Are there any like limits that you set? Like, obviously you're a human being. You can't be like going buck wild and taking like 10 demos a day. So are there limits that you set? Are there certain like calendar blocks that you put in as you have a demo, knowing that you need like time before or after? Can you take us through like just
I do. So for me, one, I also do live and die by the calendar. And I always tell my AEs or other people I'm working on, if you want me to show up and be Serena Williams, well, that takes prep and practice. So blocking off my calendars so I have time in between meetings. I'm not saying that I don't ever do 2 discoveries or 2 demos on a day. I totally do, but I need to make sure I have like 45-minute gap, hour gap. And I also believe in calendar holds. I typically work with multiple AEs that have, and where our projects are in different levels of sort of progressiveness. So where I'm trying to schedule a meeting with a customer that might be an on-site, okay, while we're trying to get that date narrowed down, I need to put up temporary time blocks so no one else will come in and sort of steal that time away, because it's hard to kind of adjust it after the fact, to go to another AE or say, hey, I can't do this day because I was waiting on this. So I kind of own my calendar in that aspect. I do the time blocking, the temporary holds, because that only will help me be a little bit more sane. I also believe in, if I need to have some type of pre-discovery, even if it's short, before I go into a demo, like, because that only is going to make me more prepared for the demo. I think discovery is equally as important as a demo, as you're kind of setting the tone of that relationship with your AE and building for the customer. I always want to make sure when I'm on those customer calls, I'm as most prepared as I can be.
Absolutely. Very helpful. I saw a question in the Q&A, and we're actually going to answer that question shortly. So stay tuned. And where we'd like to go next in this conversation is talking about specific to your roles today, because I know this varies from company to company. But as we think about what point you're actually joining in the sales process, I think there's a lot of debate around this too, because it's like, depending on what segment you're selling into, like sometimes it makes sense to actually bring the SE or SE in even earlier, like into discovery. And sometimes it makes sense to wait a few stages. So Chanel, can you start us off as far as thinking about when the pre-sales individual should join in? And then when also do you bring in other internal resources too? Because it's not just all you, there's going to be other people in some of these deals too.
No, yeah. I think the best deals, the ones that are the most memorable, are the ones that obviously like take a full village to make happen. Like this is an AE, solutions engineer, it's finance, it's legal, right? Like there are so many people to coordinate. So I think each deal will dictate, sort of when those things should come in. I am a process individual. Like I like to know that we're going to the same steps every time. But in the 2.5 years that I've been in pre-sales now, I have found that most deals will dictate slightly different steps at different stages. So the flexibility there is important. And yeah, I think it'll also depend on the maturity of the AE at the time. We've had enterprise AEs that will come in and be ramping, that I obviously have some extra experience where it's helpful to have me in a discovery call sooner rather than later. So I think being flexible, knowing your own personal limitations of I'm always the first person to bring in some of our IT and InfoSec people as soon as possible. And I start to hear those initial questions, because rather than me fielding those questions, I know that our InfoSec team is like very well poised. They're going to be able to get to the, nitty gritty that is necessary. So we do have a process by which our team has created sort of a standardized path of, hey, this is where we might bring in product specifically with a customer because it's in a geographical state we haven't done a lot of work in, and we want product to have some direct communication because maybe that's also what they're going to experience once they're onboarding. The same thing could go for executives and leadership teams. Maybe we're working with operational folks and we need to bring in, our CEO to introduce to their CEO. They're not close to the actual product we're working in, but those types of conversations and strategic alignment is just as important to get the deal across the line in many ways. So I know I'll have a little bit of a story to tell, one of my success stories where this was very important to that. So.
Absolutely love it. Yes. Anything to add here, Janelle, on this particular question as we think about where you come into the sales cycle, where you bring in other external resources or internal resources?
I mean, I like to be in the process from the start, outside of the BDR doing their role to kind of get the customer to agree to the first meeting. I like to be there from the start, just because I think there's a lot of pertinent details that sometimes get lost in translation, or the AE might not know to pass that on. So I think getting in there in the nitty gritty in the beginning only makes you a better solution consultant. So when you have these longer sales cycles, you always have a basis of kind of like where we started, and you don't feel like you've lost information or something didn't get, sort of translated to you as well. And I think on the flip side, because there's so many moving parts and I'm not an expert in everything, I need to be in those beginning calls, because if I need to kind of go to product to figure out, are we going to be able to do this niche thing that the customers want? Or what does our product roadmap look like? Those are things that I don't own, but I'm kind of owning the conversation with the customer. And even whether I'm relaying that back to them or we bring in the subject matter experts for that, kind of being a part of that process in the beginning helps me able to manage the facilitation of the duties sort of further down the line.
Absolutely. Yes, and I think one of Mary Ellen, we're going to sort to shift over to you for this next question. But as we think about the role as a whole, one of the big gaps that I feel like exists at a lot of companies is you kind of move into, say it's an SE role or an SC role. Where do you go? Is that the end? Do you just stay in the SESC role? Is there a promotion path? Are there other roles that you can move into? I think this is a really critical question in this conversation. So if you can take us through a little bit about possible promotion path, or even where you can kind of sidetrack and go into something different.
Yeah, there's definitely, I believe the data even shows, like from industry surveys, there are fewer management positions now than there were, say, 5 or 10 years ago in the SE roles. As SE leaders take on more products underneath them and their teams become larger, there's just fewer management positions. So there is the traditional path of, an associate you're hired at, you become a senior, a principal sales engineer, and you move into pre-sales management. But outside of that, there are a lot of tangential options to explore. So I think within sales, AE is honestly like a very natural next step, because the SEs have that extensive product knowledge. They have the experience objection handling, and they have logged hundreds of hours speaking to customers and demonstrating the product. The other tangential options could be something in product management, guiding the future of product development or product marketing, if that's something that they're interested in. Or they can even use those demo and conversational skills and move into something like analyst relations, where you're going to go ahead and reach out to all the different firms that rate software and build your company's influence in the industry and network that way. And I think there's a lot of different avenues beyond just straight pre-sales management out there.
Amazing. Yes. And yeah, the TLDR, there's a lot of places you can go with this. I've seen SEs and SCs move to BDR roles, and then so they can move into AE. I've seen them move straight to AE roles. I've seen them move into leadership, CS. I mean, it's wild the amount of opportunities. This is certainly not a role by any means it's going to like set you back in any way, especially if you're staying close to the revenue org. So I think it's awesome to hear that perspective from you. And This question, the next question where we're heading towards, actually, it falls in line with Pam's question in the Q&A. And we talked about this beforehand, all of us, that of course the question of the hour is going to be around AI, how it's playing into your role today, where you see AI heading in the future for pre-sales. Pam's question also centralized around, the specific activities, i.e. discovery, demo prep coaching, call prep, etc. So Janelle, let's start with you for this one. And can you talk to us about where AI is at today, where you're using it in your process? And then feel free to do some future forecasting too of where we think AI is heading.
I definitely like to use it to compare, company size and deals, especially if it's a company that's not public and you're trying to get, they don't publish their 401k, 10Ks at all. I was going to say 401ks. They don't publish their 10K data. So being able to find a similar company to compare them to run how they're trying to grow and what they're looking to do strategically. I think we all probably also use it to take notes, right? It's hard to capture every note when you're in a 2-hour meeting, especially when you're trying to talk about company strategy and where they're trying to grow in different departments. So that's one of the ways that we use it a lot, transcribing my notes so I can get those fine points and granular details that I may miss out when I'm trying to scribble and do a demo and discovery at the same time. And then also leveraging that recordings to either use them for future prospecting videos. So I call them maybe like a light demo where you're showing the product for 2 or 3 minutes just to pique interest before you start to do an hour or 2 long deeper discovery and demonstration as well.
Absolutely. So many good use cases. And Mary Ellen, Chanel, anything that you would add as far as how you both are using AI in your process today, where you're using it, where you think we're headed?
Trying different LLM products that are out there to speed up the RFP response time. So that's like how I'm using it to do my work. But I would say the other half of AI for pre-sales is you have to understand what your product is doing with AI. You have to have a really deep understanding of exactly what platforms your company is building on, and then be able to address the security concerns that'll come up just in first meetings about that from your customers, and how is their data separate from someone else's, and being able to instill confidence that everything is separate and secure.
Couldn't agree more with what Mary Ellen just said. We instituted 3 AI products that are embedded actually into our product. And those were a lot of the questions that we needed to field as solutions engineers. What was it? What access to data does it have? What enterprise licenses are we using to generate the product itself? But what I have found even more exciting than sort of the initiation of AI into our product is how we're actually using it to change like the day-to-day life internally and how the team shares information. Sort of already shared, we're sort of in a siloed sort of process where product is its own team, CS is its own team, solutions is its own team, sales is its own team. And so what that requires is a lot of information to be shared and synthesized in a way that, each different audience is able to understand it, take it in, know what it means to them. So yeah, we're leveraging tons of AI for transcript, summarization, creating key documents that we were creating by hand, from listening to recordings and writing our own notes. So it's just taking what our solutions team was maybe spending 8 to 10 hours on an individual customer to now bringing that down to like less than an hour to validate, hey, what did we take out of the transcript? Was it accurate to the story we're trying to tell about this customer and what value they see in what we're selling them? So internally, super excited. We have AI sessions weekly on our calendar to make sure that we're taking advantage of these tools. And I know that our internal leadership, sort of has taken it as a responsibility that as we're in software, we're in technology, we should also be industry leading in the ways that we're leveraging it for our own, sort of day-to-day use.
Amazing. We only have a few minutes left. So there is a really good Q&A question that just came in. And I am going to suggest that we actually take that over to the Women in Sales Slack community in the pre-sales channel and actually answer it there. So I will cross post that in a little bit. But I think this is awesome. It's great to hear how you are all using AI today. This is always a talking point for our community. We love sharing little tips, tricks, platforms. So I'm going to combine the next couple questions into one for the sake of time. But one of the big things between AE and pre-sales, and we all have talked about this, is there's some misalignment happening. There's some feelings over the years that have developed between the two. We've talked about this behind the scenes too. So I guess as we think about this question, let's take it from two angles. The first being, what are some of the main reasons that this alignment is off? Like, where did it come from? Why is it happening? And then how can AEs in particular best show up for their pre-sales partners to make these sales cycle even more successful? So let's start with you for this, Chanel.
So I think to answer the first part of the question, like where does this all begin is timing, right? I think we all have sort of the process that we are following. AEs, obviously, we want to get the deal closed as soon as possible. But I think we share that same sentiment on all of the other teams, but there are just steps and balances, right? That we want to make sure that, to the same thing I said earlier, you want to make sure that, at least in our organization, a deal that churns is worse than a no sale at all. So we want to make sure that we're doing the proper due diligence up front to make sure we have a successful and happy customer. So I think realigning on that specific item allows us to eliminate some of the things that would cause these challenges, right? Which is not having enough discovery up front to make sure that we can move at the pace that you expect. We got to ask the right questions to move quickly. And then just making sure that if we are coordinating additional people, that we're being as efficient with that time as possible. People are going to have PTO, right? Those are the things that could extend deals. So how are we being strategic about the ways that we'll schedule specific calls so that the deal feels like it's going to flow very seamlessly for the customer? But internally, maybe we switched a few things around so that we're able to, again, get there as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest, we've talked about this behind the scenes, all of us, the biggest thing we forget is we're on the same team. We are both trying to win the deal. There is no win if the pre-sales person keeps losing deals. That reflects badly on them too. So we are on the same team. We are trying to do the same things. We are trying to win the right deal. So I think this is incredibly critical. Mary Ellen, what about you? Anything that you would add in terms of, you know, whether it be like the historics of where this has come from, and or any best practices that you've seen when working with AEs that have really helped the relationship strengthen?
Yeah, I think it obviously would depend on the comp structure for the SE team, but if everyone's comp for deals closed, no matter who worked on them, I think it's always best to give the right people the right chance to shine. I know personally, I am energized and love doing new business types of deals, and I know other people on my team are way better at the super deep technical types of demonstrations that we don't really get to until somebody's been a customer for many years and they're looking to maybe switch products or change something from one product to another at our company. So I think if we can maybe bring 2 or 3 SEs to a first meeting with the AE, all internal, and just go over the discovery so far, the opportunity, and amongst yourselves agree who's the best one to handle it. I think that's usually where things kind of flow most naturally and everything goes smoothly when somebody's, in their arena doing what they're best at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are actually close on time because we're doing a shorter webinar today. So if you have additional questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A and I will cross post those into the pre-sales channel just so we can keep conversations going there. All 3 of these wonderful ladies are in the Women in Sales Slack community, so they can share their insights that way. But to round us out here, I think a great place to end on is your favorite AE/pre-sales success story that you've had throughout your career. So Janelle, will you start us off with your favorite memory, your favorite example?
Yes, and I'll preclude that by saying, the AESC solutionship, we'll use that. It's a fine dance. It's like finding the perfect dance partner. We have to coordinate and make sure we don't step on each other's toes. But the best deal I ever had was actually an existing customer, and the deal took 18 months, longest deal cycle ever. But we literally reconfirmed with them why we were the best solution. They were having some hiccups with the current software that they had. And I basically spent that and became a trainer. So retrained them on what they already owned to do the upsell later for what they eventually bought. But it was there were times where we didn't hear anything for months. It was a lot of drought. It was a lot of even internal chaos collectively, right? Of why isn't this deal moving faster? And I'll just end on the note of, the dance of the deal is being customer centric. You have to understand what else the customer has going on, other implementations. They might be ramping up a new team. All of those things are important when you're talking about, is this deal scheduled to close this quarter, this month, this year? We as the AE and solution consultant team can push as much as we want, but if the customer isn't ready because of their own internal turbulence or growth, then we just have to ride those waves with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed. Also, Janelle, have you ever used the word solutionship? Because I can't think of
No, now I'm going to start using that. Solutionship.
I'm going to trademark that. That's
I'm going to trademark that.
But that was awesome. Like, what a perfect word to summarize literally everything we're talking about. What about you, Mary Ellen? What's your favorite story, success story from you and an AE working together?
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier about like giving both people the chance to shine. I worked with an AE and we still work together, but it took us 2 years to break into a new vertical to the company, which was retail. And that's where my prior experience came from as an implementation consultant. So I was just, always raising my hand to go after any new opportunities in retail that we could get. And when we finally kind of met the right opportunity, we both worked just incredibly quickly to turn things around for them. Like demo to demo, like 2 different demos in 2 days and showing them exactly what they wanted to see. And we were just in lockstep at that point, and we were very quickly able to close the deal. So it's kind of like when you find the right opportunity, it lands in your lap, and all those, flops from earlier feel worth it.
Awesome. And Chanel, let's round out with you. What's your favorite story? Take us home.
Yeah, mine was very similar to Janelle's. It was a very long sales cycle that was one of the longest in history. Just in the time that I was working it, this opportunity was one that was worked 2 years prior for also another year and a half. So it was just one that was long, hard fought by multiple team members. It ended up being the largest deal that had closed our company's history at the time. We've since beat that record. The different deal, but ultimately was just one of those culminations and just as the solutions team was finally getting up and running, like proving this point that, hey, we really could win these enterprise deals. We could do it in a way that made them very confident about what they were purchasing and made our teams ultimately feel comfortable because like Janelle said, sometimes it's the internal, making sure product and finance and legal are all aligned across what needs to get a deal home. And it really did include each of those team members to make that happen. So when it's a team effort, those are always my favorite wins that everybody's sort of involved in them.
Amazing. I could not agree more. It's so fun when you do like the little Slack message and then everybody chimes in and everybody gets their shout out. That is the absolute best. And that's the way we should be running all our deals. Deals should never be won or lost on a single individual. So this has been amazing. Thank you all for your insights. Chanel, Janelle, Mary Ellen, this has been awesome. Thank you for sharing this. And I did drop the Q&A question over into Slack. So these 3 ladies will have a chance to review that, get back to you. And we have many, many more resources in the Women in Sales Slack community. So we'll see you over there and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.